What's up everyone? In today's video, I'm gonna be designing a throwback sort of 90s style Super Bowl 56 t-shirt graphic. I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of Photoshop tips and tricks along the way. Let's go. What's up everyone? So first of all, thank you so much to all the new subscribers that are here. Thank you to everyone who's been subscribed. It means so much that you watch these videos, so thank you. I've had a bunch of people comment and say they wanted to see another sports related design. So maybe football, baseball, soccer. I've done basketball a couple times. Well, this Sunday is Super Bowl 56. We got the Rams and the Bengals going head to head. So I thought, why not do a throwback design for the Super Bowl? I used to love wearing Super Bowl tees when I was a kid. I'm a diehard Packers fan. I'm not bitter at all that they were the best team in the league and didn't make it to the Super Bowl and lost in the first round of the playoffs. I'm not bitter. I'm not. Anyways, today's tutorial should be fun. I've got a ton of tips and tricks to show you inside Photoshop so you can make your own sports related design, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, water polo, rugby, whatever you're into. Without further ado, let's jump into my computer and see what's going on. Okay, so we are inside Photoshop looking at the design I created for today's tutorial. I wanted it to sort of be a mix of modern and 90s. So I gave it sort of a 90s vibe with like some added halftones. I used more of like the Western text, which I think is a little more reminiscent of the 90s versus using something a little bit more clean and modern. I used Euro style text on the bottom, which is like a pretty classic 90s font in my opinion. And then I used the old school Rams helmet as well. So there's a few different elements that sort of made this a little bit more reminiscent of that era. So I want to speak to one thing really quick. When you're making these types of shirts where there's two teams represented, you have to sort of think about it in a different way. Like I could have gone with a color palette that was more reflective of Super Bowl 56's branding, which is like a lot of warm tones, like some sort of like creamsicle orange tones, berry tones. But to me, it just didn't look as, I don't know, I don't want to be rude, but like it just didn't look cool to me. And so I thought it would be better to use the Lombardi trophy as the basis for the majority of the color palette, and then let the little pops of color come through with the team colors and make sure they were equally represented as well. That's one thing you want to be cautious of when you design this type of shirt. Like you don't want to use a color that might be reminiscent of one of the teams, so it's like it shows favoritism in some way. I don't know, at least that's the way I think about it. So you end up with a more well-balanced design if you approach it in this way, in my opinion. So I think without further ado, we'll just jump into Google. And the first thing I did was I hit Pinterest. I've said this before, I think Pinterest is like the best place to find inspiration for really any type of design. I just searched 90s Super Bowl shirt. I loved this one that I saw right away, which sort of had, it happens to be a Packers shirt, whatever. I believe lost that Super Bowl, so that's cool to think about and remember. So I see, we got Elway on the left, we got Favre on the right, doing sort of like the versus style quarterbacks, going head to head. I thought that was a cool concept, so I kept that in mind. Kept scrolling. I honestly didn't see a ton of inspiration besides that. Like there's an awful lot of Chief shirts, which I thought was weird, but yeah, like, I don't know. A lot of them were more graphic driven. Like I really love this, and I love the text, especially like having that sort of metallic, like chrome vibe. This would definitely require some type of like illustration, which I wasn't really into doing for this tutorial. But yeah, if nothing else, I do like Pinterest as a place of inspiration for this type of graphic. But yeah, I guess for me, like I sort of had the concept in my head a little bit and just wanted to like see what some of these old school shirts look like. So the first thing I did after looking at inspiration was I wanted to find a good photo of the Lombardi trophy because I wanted to use that to sort of separate the two quarterbacks. Like I knew that right away, right? And so literally the first photo I saw was this one, which was posted like hours ago, which is pretty cool. But I always search by, I always go to advanced search, and then I always narrow it down by larger than 2 megapixels right off the bat, because that weeds out any like small photos. You can get right to the good stuff that way. And yeah, this was literally the first result. So we'll just right click, copy image, go back to Photoshop, Command V, and let's bring back the old artwork so I can make sure that the trophy is sized correctly. Just gonna lower the opacity so I can see what I'm doing and make sure the size is like pretty much exactly the same as it was originally. Trying to get this tutorial as close to the example as possible. All right, it's pretty good. Okay, opacity back to 100. We can remove the original artwork. And now I'm just going to isolate the trophy, right? So the fastest way, in my opinion, is just to go to properties. And to get there, you can just go to Window, Properties, make sure the image that you want to isolate is highlighted over in your layers panel, and then just hit Remove Background. Now, there's definitely some sketchy areas, mostly this. And so what we can do to fix that is just click the little layer mask like thumbnail here, which is the black and white image, and then set your paintbrush to probably like, yeah, hard round will work great. Like the size will depend on what you're trying to get rid of, how detailed it is, and that sort of thing. But once you have that set and your foreground is set to white and your background is black or vice versa, and you can swap between these two swatches just by hitting X on your keyboard. If you see down here, they switch between white and black. It's kind of a handy little trick. Because I guess Bob Ross. That's a handy little trick there. So what we can do now is just paint in these areas that got messed up using white, and that's going to bring back some of that original image. And we'll just sort of eyeball it up here. As some of you know, I sometimes go a little bit faster when I clean little things up like this. And you know, I don't make everything totally perfect. If you're doing a graphic that you're gonna be selling or anything like that, or it's for a client, make sure you take your time, make sure all of this is like super clean. For the purposes of my tutorial, I just go a little bit fast to get the job done, show y'all how to do it, and then we can keep it moving. So that'll work for sure. So that's good enough. From here, I'll just right click and I'll go convert to smart object. That's just what I like to do. Let's go back to Google and keep the images coming. So when I was thinking about the photos I wanted to use for Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow, I wanted them to be the same. Like I didn't want one to be like he's running and the other one to be, you know, he's fucking falling on the ground. I don't know. Like, and so if you look at what I ended up doing, they're both sort of just like running with the ball. I think Matt's about to throw the ball here. You can kind of see it behind the trophy. And so I think it works, and it just makes the design feel like, again, balanced, where it's not like one of them is clearly throwing a touchdown and the other one is getting sacked. You know what I mean? Like you want to think about that stuff. So again, narrowed down by 2 megapixels, anything larger than 2 megapixels. Third image I found was this, which looked pretty good. It's a full body shot. The background is like sort of blurred, which is useful for removing it. Like it's not a super complex background with a bunch of players behind them or anything like that. So we can just right click, again, copy image, back to Photoshop, and then we'll just hit Command V, Control V, of course, if you're on a PC. And then we'll just size Matthew up here. And again, I just want to make sure that it's similar sizing so we're not making a bunch of adjustments later. We got pretty close. Damn. Cool, yeah, that's good. All right, so now same thing, click remove background. Let's see what we come up with. Pretty good. As you can see, like the resolution could definitely be better, and it's because like this photo is like, you know, if it were just like this part of Matt, it would probably be larger, but the majority of this photo is just like the background, which is whatever. Like, again, it's just a tutorial. I'm not gonna be printing this, so I don't really care. But you wanna definitely make sure that you get the highest resolution photo possible if you're gonna print it. And so now we can kind of just look at this. If we wanted to like smooth out the edges, we could feather it a little bit. And to do that, we can just click on this thumbnail again, bump up the feather, and that'll just like smooth the edges. Maybe I'll do that a little bit, like maybe 1.5, nothing crazy, but that does help a little bit. And then I think I'm just gonna bring back a little bit of his jersey there. Let's go down, check out the feet. Bring some of that back so it looks a little bit more organic and like he didn't get in some sort of weird on-field accident where his toe got ripped off. What am I talking about? All right. Let's see, is this? Nope, we don't need that. Okay, I mean, this is honestly pretty decent. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess we could, if we really wanted to get nitpicky, we could switch the foreground to black and remove a little bit of this. But I think, again, for the most part, like, this will get the job done. So again, I'm gonna right click, convert to smart object. So I'm gonna start renaming these layers, getting a little bit more organized. It's totally optional, but it's definitely a good habit to get into, and especially when you have a ton of layers. All right, now let's head back to Google Chrome. We've got our picture of Joe Burrow ready to go. Again, just wanted to find a photo that was complementary to the image of Matt Stafford to keep a well-balanced design. We'll right click, copy image, back to Photoshop, Command V. We've got it in there. Let's drag this down below the other layers and just size it up. Remove background right away. Again, this was a nice photo to use because it had sort of that blurred background, which is typically easier to remove than having a bunch of like subjects in the background. And now we can just sort of clean this up. Let's zoom in. See, just slightly better resolution than the other photo. Again, it's not perfect, but we're not gonna be printing this, so whatever. I'm gonna use black as the foreground and just sort of clean this up. Might have to decrease the size of the brush a little bit here to get these finer details. Okay, get in this helmet here. Up here. I gotta tell you, the remove background function is just so damn useful. Like, it's not perfect, and I don't expect it to be. Like, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's still your artwork, and you should have to put in some work to get it to look how you like it, how you want it to look, you know. But damn, very, very useful, especially when you're doing band merch and you've got like, you know, 7 people in the band and you have to isolate everyone. Like, it is a godsend for sure. Okay, let's look at his feet, because apparently the feet seem to be an issue. It was an issue with the Matt Stafford photo as well. Yeah, they just get cut off a lot. I don't know why that is. Don't want too much of this grass showing. Again, going a little faster than I normally would. But, I mean, legs looking a little sketchy here. That might not been the move. Sorry, bro, I gotta get rid of some of this. I gotta get rid of some of your leg. Sorry, we have to amputate. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I mean, I think actually this is where I actually like stretched out matte a little bit just to like make them the same height. And it didn't, you know, it doesn't change it a whole lot. I doubt anyone like noticed that when they saw the design initially, but yeah, let's see. That a little bit. Yeah, that will definitely do it, okay? Oh, and look at that, caught something there. So I'm gonna rasterize it, and then I'm just gonna use the eraser tool and get rid of this little bit of the field that was showing there. And then I'll just right click and convert it to a smart object again. Cool, okay. So let's look at it in comparison with the original graphic. Make sure it's on point. So Matt's a little bit larger than he should be. Size that down. What about Joe? Joe, yep, it just made them both a little bit bigger than they should be compared to the original, which is all good. And that's why making it a smart object is smart, that's why it's smart. That's why it's a smart object, folks. Because you can size it up and down and it doesn't like mess with the resolution a ton. I think let's just bump matte over a little bit more. Okay, now we are back in business. So the next thing is jumping back to Google, and I wanted to find like a dope background for this, and I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. At first I thought of just doing like some palm trees or something, and then I thought I should use a photo of the stadium. It was really hard to find the right photo, and I almost abandoned the idea completely because I just kept seeing photos that were like shots of the inside, and I was like, that's not very cool. And then I saw this and I was like, damn, that looks super dope. So yeah, it says Sophie Stadium, so we can sort of get that worked into the design in some way. It's like just a super dope aerial shot. So this is what we're gonna use for sure. It's not a huge image, but it'll work for our purposes. Right click, copy image, back to Photoshop, and Command V. Drag that to the bottom layer, and we're gonna have to size this up quite a bit. But we're gonna be manipulating the graphics so much that like, I don't know, I don't think it's gonna matter a whole lot that we're like sizing it up a ton in terms of like the resolution. And I think from here what I did was right click, convert to smart object, and then right away I added an inner glow. Whoops, show all effects. I added an inner glow of black. Reset to default, change the color to black, change the blend mode to normal, and I just went all the way up with the size. So it just made a really nice soft edge all the way around. Okay, so this looks decent, but to me it looks a little bit too contemporary. And as I was saying earlier, I wanted the pops of color to come from the team's logos and jerseys. So we're just gonna add a gradient map over the background to fix that. To do that, at the bottom of the layers panel, you'll see the little like half circle sort of thing. And the second from the bottom should be gradient map. And so we'll just click that. We don't need to like right click, create clipping mask or anything like that, because this is just gonna be applied to everything in the background of our graphic. And wow, this actually looks somewhat decent on white. I was not expecting that. But we don't want on white, we're gonna go with like a darker colored shirt. So over here in our properties window, you can see a gradient, right? So if you just click the gradient, that's gonna bring up gradient editor. And I've got all these like there's all the like stock gradients. I've got Exograde in here from Black Market. Shout out to those dudes. But we're gonna switch up the colors. So down here, we've got our little like stoppers, right? And we can just see the different colors down here at the bottom when we click, right? So the far left, we're gonna change that color to black. And then we're gonna change the far right to just straight up white. Okay, now we're gonna add one more stopper directly in the middle. And if you're a little bit off, you can just change the location manually down here. We want it right at 50. And we're gonna change that color to a value from the trophy, right? So we get a little bit of that like silver kind of vibe going, right? And if you wanted, I mean, you could go like with a lighter gray here, and then down here you could go with, you know, like a darker gray, something like down here. And it doesn't have to be from the trophy. Like, I can take some liberties here, you know, but I want it to be pretty dark, right? Like that, sort of moody. All right, that should work. Okay, and so we might as well just get mathematical with this. We'll change this one to 25. We'll change this one to, actually no, this should be 33, and this should be 66. All right, math. All right, so we're looking pretty good. I think at some point we're gonna wanna add a levels adjustment layer, but we'll do that in a sec. Right now, I think what we wanna do is, let's just adjust this a little bit, get it more centered. If I'm not mistaken, I also added a, and I'm just gonna group this together so we can quickly switch between them. Yeah, so this ends up looking pretty dark in the background, and I removed the sky entirely, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with looking at this remake. I think the sky looks kind of dope, which happens when you redo something, you make adjustments on however you're feeling in the moment. But yeah, for right now, let's just go back and get these other logos in here. So again, just narrowed it down by big ass images, right click. I wanted to find the B logo, which is a little bit more of the 90s vibe versus like the new age tiger. The new age, yeah, tiger. I almost said, I mean Bengal. It's a fucking Bengal tiger, okay. So we're gonna go to the top layer, Command V, get this logo in here, change it to a smart object right away, just right click, size it down a bit. Get that down here. And I think it was decently sized, maybe like that. All right, now let's grab the Rams logo. I actually had to search old Rams logo PNG to find this one. They've had like a lot of different logos over the years. So I did finally find a decently sized one. Right click, copy image, back to our design. And let's rename this Bengals logo, Command V. Now, right away, I could see an issue was that there's like a decent stroke on the Bengals logo and there's no stroke on the Rams logo, but that's an easy enough fix. We'll just start by converting to a smart object, size it down so it's about the same size as the Bengals logo for that balance. And then I basically just like zoomed in and eyeballed the stroke. You could also just like use a tool like this and see, well, I want to change the measurement to pixels. You can see like probably about a 30 pixel stroke. So just clicking stroke here in the layer style, changing color to white, and then we'll just go to 30 and see how it looks. I think it needs to be a little bigger, maybe like 40 actually, yeah, 35. Yeah, let's do 35. Whoops, I didn't click I didn't click 250, I clicked 35, okay. All right. So that looks pretty good, a little bit smaller. Doesn't have to be, sometimes you just wanna eyeball it, like the height doesn't need to be exactly the same, it just needs to visually feel like it's the same size. Like sometimes you just should trust your eyes. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna look at the original artwork again. I'm gonna change this to screen so I can kind of see what I'm doing here. So we're way off on the logo. That should be down here. Bengals logo should be down here. And they should both be a little bit smaller. Yo, really quick, I'm sorry to pause the tutorial. We're gonna get back to it in a second, but I wanna tell you about this Discord community that me and a bunch of other merch designers started. It's called Merch Gods. So it's literally hand-picked designers in the music and entertainment industry who are as good as me, if not better, answering your questions, supplying you with really dope resources and inspiration that we all use, doing live tutorials, doing live Q&A sessions. Depending on how involved you want to get into it, there's different like levels that you can join, but it is a monthly subscription. It's probably as much as you pay for coffee every month, but I promise like the value that you will get from this design community is unlike anywhere else. So I just want to shout that out really quick. If you're into it, check it out. All right, back to the tutorial. Okay, so from here, let's get some text added in. I went with sort of like a country vibe. I don't know, like when I was cruising through Pinterest, I saw a few graphics that just had, maybe they were cowboy shirts. I don't know if maybe that influenced me, but yeah, I just saw enough graphics that had like a more Western style font that it just led me to believe that that was the vibe in the 90s. So I went to the font, which for whatever reason, a lot of people hate on. I'm not really sure why. They have like so many different fonts on here. And I've been using it for 10 plus years, but for some reason people seem to hate on it. I love it. I just narrowed it down by fancy Western. I typed in Super Bowl for the preview. It should be 2 words. So let's fix that because I have OCD. And then I just went through here and landed on Show Guide, which has now disappeared. So that's cool. There we go. Okay. Show Guide. I just thought it was like very straightforward, clean, basic. It didn't look super modern. Like Show Guide is yeah, just a pretty classic font. So I downloaded that. I'll just click here, type out Super Bowl, change it to white. Probably don't want to use 600 as our kerning. Let's switch it. Actually, let's switch it to -25. Super Bowl. Wow. I love the Super Bowl. All right, Jesus. All right, so we'll size that up. I think I'm gonna end up changing the spacing here a little bit, make it a little bit tighter. Okay, so we've got just plain white text right now. Probably not what we want to use. It's not that interesting and doesn't look very cool to me. So let's think about what type of like effect we could put on this that would make it feel more organic and cohesive with this design, right? So we've got this badass like trophy in the middle. Could we create a style that is reflective of this and like sort of has that chrome silvery vibe? I think we can. So what I did, and you're welcome to mess around with styles and create your own or whatever, but I just preloaded in some textile packs from FULLERMOE.com. Little plug there, but honestly, like the heavy metal textile pack, volume 1 and 2, and the NBA textile pack have some really nice like metallic looking options. Just like really nice kind of chromey vibes. Some are just like outlines, but there's silver and gold in a lot of these. So this was just a great kind of kit to mess around with, like all these 3 kits. So what I ended up landing on was this one, which you might be saying like, yo Fuller, but that's like gold, right? Not a big deal, because we could go about this 2 ways. Like if you wanted to just change the gradient overlay, you could make all of these swatches like silver, right? And reflective of this. That's one way to do it. I didn't want to do that. So all I did was I changed the outer glow first to black because I liked how that looked more. And then I just clicked OK. And that was literally it. Maybe I messed around with the stroke a little. I don't know. Did I even? I don't know. Maybe I took it down to like 15 or something. Just so it wasn't as thick, but I think that might have been it. Like, I changed the depth at all. I don't know. I mean, I did very little to the pre-made effect is what I'm trying to say. And then I duplicated this in case I needed to go back to it. Just hit Command J to duplicate it. And then I took this top one and I did convert to smart object. And then I just hit Command U to bring up hue and saturation. And I just took the saturation down to -100, right? And so that sort of made it look more like charcoal, dark gray, right? Which is not really what we want, because we want it to be a brighter sort of like chrome look, right? So that's not a big deal. I just went up to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast, clicked Use Legacy, brought up the contrast, brought up the brightness, and you still have that sort of like, you know, chrome silvery look, right? On the edges especially. And then once I got to sort of a place I liked, click OK, and then I added a, let's show all effects. I added a color overlay of like sort of this, almost like a blue silver tint, right? And I changed the blend mode to multiply. So that ended up giving me a vibe that's a little bit more like on par with this trophy and how that looks, right? A little bit blue. And if we wanted, I mean, we could change, like, if we wanted this to actually have more of a blue tint all around. And keep in mind though that right now the background is reflective of the trophy, so we might have to switch that up, but we could change this to like more of like a blue, because I'm kind of liking this blue vibe. Maybe we'll just switch it up. I'm calling it audible right now. I'm using use a little football terminology. We're calling it audible. We're at the line. We're gonna go more of like an icy blue. Okay, so I'm just gonna highlight this hex value down here, DFE5F2, hit Command C to copy it, click OK, and then we're gonna go to the trophy and we're gonna do a color overlay on that. And since Photoshop is cool, it like just recognizes like, yo, you're probably gonna use that same color overlay, right? Like, yeah, all right. So now I'm gonna go down and we've got a gradient map on this already. So what could we do? Here's what we could do. Check this out. Solid color, blue, and then I'm gonna change that blend mode to multiply. And then I'm going to create a clipping mask over the background. Boom. Now the whole background still has this gradient map, but now it has this blue tone over it, right? And so the alternative to this would be just changing the gradient map to the blue. This was just like literally on the fly, something that I just thought of doing now. But yeah, I guess for the sake of this tutorial, I'll just change the gradient. I don't know. We can keep this sort of like, I think, gray tone here, but we'll just switch this blue up to this, like maybe this. Okay, that was so funny. I literally just on the fly was like, yo, would this work? And it did. That's what you get when you've been doing this for over a decade. Okay, so one thing I am noticing now is I do want the sky removed. Earlier I was like, I don't know, I kind of like the sky, and now I'm like reverting back to when I made the original graphic and seeing exactly why I removed the sky. It just looks like too much to me, I don't know. So we'll just add a gradient overlay and make sure your foreground is set to black if you're trying to do this, and then select this second option, which is black going to the transparent grid, and then we'll change it to -90. I'll change the scale to 10 just so I can sort of move it down with my mouse and just get rid of like most of the sky, right? Okay, click OK. All right, looking pretty good. I think I want to bump that up a bit. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna hit Command S to save this shit, because the last thing we want is for Photoshop to freak out and you lose your stuff. So always be saving. All right, so we've got our text laid out, we've got our background sort of colorized, more in line with the text in the trophy. Now I think we wanna warp the top text so it's not just straight across, right? So I'm gonna duplicate it right away. I love duplicating shit. I just like having copies of whatever I'm doing in case I change my mind. And I'm gonna make sure, actually, you know what? Let's rasterize this layer and then convert to a smart object again. Just cause I don't like when, like, for example, I'll go back to this. When you try to like warp it, it'll revert back to the gold. It basically just takes off these effects that you put on it, like the brightness and contrast, the hue and saturation. I don't know why it does that, but I prefer not to see the old version. So I just rasterized it and converted it to a smart object again. Now, when we go up to the top, to this, where it says switch between free transform and warp modes. Now we can see like the new like edited version, right? So we'll go to warp, arc lower, then we'll change the bend to, let's say -20, maybe -30. Sure, let's go -30, okay? And now we're just gonna hold down shift and we'll grab the middle here, like top or bottom, doesn't really matter, but we're just gonna pull it down with our mouse, right? And that's just going to allow the top to sort of stay straight. If any of you have watched my previous videos, you'll know that I just love this method, and I just love how this looks like on a shirt. Like the arced text that's like straight across just like always looks super fucking dope on t-shirts. So I'm gonna keep using it until someone tells me not to, and then I'm gonna tell them to f off. Okay, so honestly, this design like could be done right now. It's pretty well laid out, it looks good, but we're gonna add an adjustment layer just to make things a little bit darker, a little bit more contrasted. And to do that, I'll go down to this little half circle again here at the bottom, and I'll go to levels. All right, so we see levels over here in our properties window. And I'm just gonna make some adjustments here, just sort of like eyeballing it. Like I said, I just want it to be a little bit more contrasted, a little bit brighter, and using levels is a really quick way to do that. And so now you can see especially the background sort of starting to like become really contrasted. I don't want it to be too much because I want, you know, I want you to still be able to like make out some of the smaller details, but yeah, that looks pretty cool. Okay, so I'm feeling good about that. I think we added like some lightning in the background too, so let's throw that in there right away. I'm just gonna make a new layer, click the little plus down here, new layer, and we actually don't need a clipping mask anymore on this background. Get rid of those. Okay, so we've got our new layer. I'm just gonna already rename this lightning because I know that we're gonna be using the FULLERMOE bootleg creator brush set volume 1, and all this stuff, that everything I use in this video will be linked below in the description. I'm gonna use the twin lightning brush because we've got two subjects and it's gonna like work perfectly. So literally I'll just change the swatch of my foreground to white, and then I'll just click with the brush and boom. And then I'm gonna probably move around this lightning a little bit, but I just wanna be conscious of like where else it is so I don't like accidentally grab part of it and mess it up. But I want some lightning coming out here, right? And then we'll probably want a little bit of lightning here as well, kind of like balancing it out, right? This honestly looks better than the original. Like I think adding that touch of blue like is setting this whole thing off. Like I love that shit. Nothing makes me happier than like when I remake it and it is better than the original. So I'm literally just like eyeballing this to like find a good placements for this lightning, so it's like showing. I don't like when like there's no point in using a brush or like adding any element to your background if like you can't really see it, you know? Okay. And then maybe down here? Yeah, actually like where it was, okay. So from here, we need to do a few things. One, I'm not gonna add drop shadows to anything. In the original graphic, you can see there are some drop shadows, but I don't like how that looks now. For whatever reason, I'm looking at this new design. I'm not sure why, but I don't want drop shadows. I think it looks cool like this. So we're gonna skip the drop shadows. Fucking YouTube how to use drop shadows if you really want to add some, but it's pretty basic. So now from here we have to add the LVI text, the Roman numeral 56 text at the top under Super Bowl, and then the text at the bottom, and then it's a wrap. So let's get that text in there. So it's gonna be above the trophy. So where's the trophy layer? Right here. Click with our T for text, LVI, and I'm gonna hold down, I'm gonna bring this down, and then I'm gonna hold down Shift and make some adjustments to it. If you don't hold down Shift, it'll just scale it. It'll keep the aspect ratio of the text and it'll just move it up and down. But if you hold down Shift, you can like stretch it all weird and shit. It's so funny. I've seen like multiple times like where designers are like, I'm gonna go crazy and I'm gonna stretch the text. I'm like, I'm sure there's some book somewhere that says don't stretch your text, but like, bro, it's art. Stretch that shit. Do whatever you want. Do whatever looks good. All right. Clean little LVI text, and we're gonna go back and do what we did before with like the chrome style, chrome gold, you know, style. Damn, with the levels on there, it looks so crazy. Look at that. That makes a huge difference. But yeah, we're gonna adjust the stroke for sure. We can bring that down so it's not so crazy. Maybe, yeah, 15. I think I brought the depth down to 150. That's cool, okay. Again, duplicate that. On the new layer, right click, convert to, oh wait, we gotta change the outer glow to black. There we go, okay. Right click, convert to smart object, and Command U, saturation down to -100, image adjustments, brightness, contrast, use legacy, bump up the contrast, bump up the brightness, just sort of trying to match that text on top, right? All right, so now we wanna make sure we use the same color of blue that's in the trophy and the text. So we can just go down to the trophy, see what color overlay the value is here, the hex value is, Command C to copy it, go back to our LVI text, double click, color overlay, look at that, it's already in there, okay? I'm just gonna bump that up a little bit, looking good, just eyeballing it to the center. And I think I can actually move the Super Bowl text up a little bit because I don't want to cover too much of this trophy. All right. I mean, that looks pretty good to me. Now we got to get this text in at the bottom. I mentioned earlier that I used Euro style. If you look at 90s stuff and you know fonts, like Euro style had a fucking moment in the 90s. Like that shit was everywhere. And so let's see, I think it's February 13th. And then I added a little bullet point in the middle. To get to these, to get to like the bullet point and like the other like symbols and shit, you can just go to Window Glyphs and that'll bring that up. Okay, so now we're just resizing the text a bit. I think maybe the kerning's a little too much, maybe like 400, so I can make this text a little bit bigger. That looks pretty good. Okay, and so now this might be controversial, but when I want to do like lines on the top and bottom, I don't use the line tool. I use the rectangle tool. the line tool in whatever, like in Photoshop 2022, and I think probably a couple years before that, they made some change to the line tool that's like super wacky now, and I just like don't like it. I think it's weird. So I'll literally just go, I'll zoom in and I'll just make a rectangle that's the size that I would need for a line, where you used to be able to like adjust the stroke. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I don't like the line tool anymore. Sorry, Adobe, but this works pretty well for me. I'll just do that. And then once I've got my rectangle, I'll just hold down Shift and drag it over so that it's the right size. We just want it to span the entire width of the text. That's good. And then we'll bump it up. I'm gonna hold down Shift and bump it up a little bit. That feels pretty good. And then hit Command J and I'll duplicate that rectangle, hold down Shift, slide it down, and make sure, it's really nice to just keep your smart guides on. And to do that, you can just go to View, Show, Smart Guides, and then that's gonna give you this thing. So like you can see when the pixels, where the spacing is like exact. So I can see like, oh, right there, 45 pixels on each side. So that looks pretty clean. Then I'm going to grab this rectangle layer, hold down Shift, highlight the other rectangle, highlight the text for the date, Command G, I'm gonna group them all together so I can add a little like, probably an outer glow over, and apply it to all of those elements. And then I'm gonna bump it up over their feet a little bit, just to like make sure it doesn't feel too disconnected from the rest of the graphic, right? And I think the trophy can be bumped up a little bit. Yo, we gotta add the halftones. That's like the cherry on top, right? So to do that, make sure everything is in a group. Remember we grouped it earlier. Make sure all your layers are in a group, and then hit Command J on the group. And then you can go to the background and hit Command J as well. And then bring that up to the second layer and merge the top two layers so that it just makes like one solid layer of black and the graphic, right? And then go to, make sure your foreground is set to black in your swatches, right? And your background is white. And then go to Filter, Filter Gallery. And this part is totally optional. It looks fine, but I just add like a little bit of extra sauce, just whatever, because I think it'll look cooler. Go to Sketch and Halftone Pattern, and then you can mess around with contrast and size. And if you want, here's what it looks like without the added grains under it. Looks just fine, but the grain adds just a little bit more detail. And to get these grains in here, you can just click on the bottom new effect layer. And then I have a grain, it's under texture, texture, grain type enlarged, and then grain type clumped, and it's just grain as well, texture grain, right? So anyways, totally optional on those, but it adds a little bit more grit to it, right? So this looks fine to me. I think it's using all the values from the original graphic. You can mess around with this however you want. Click OK. Now from here, you can mess around with these blend modes, and like whatever looks cool to you, go with that. I personally want to use lighten, and then I'm going to change the opacity of this layer to 50%. Okay, and that to me just like adds just a little bit of that extra sauce that, I don't know, I think it just takes it to the next level. It looks cool. If you don't like it, use something else, but I think it looks fucking dope. So maybe not 50, maybe 40. All right, so let's mock this up on a t-shirt, make sure we're not crazy and that it's gonna look good on a tee. All right, for the t-shirt mock-up, I've got the FULLERMOE Master Bundle cracked open. We're just gonna use the Rue Porter Luxury Mockups Kit. By the way, Master Bundle, over 500 graphic tools for you to use, 39 different kits, individual unique kits. It's super dope. Check it out. I don't know, that's all I'm gonna say. So we're gonna go to the Rue Porter, let's use the Luxury Heavyweight T. Open that up, we can hide the instruction layer, go back to our graphic. I'm just gonna go to Layer, Flatten Image, Command A, grab the whole thing, Command Copy. Back to our mockup, we'll go down to Your Design Goes Here, Command V. I'm gonna change the blend mode to screen right away. I'm going to right click on my design layer, convert to smart object. I'm gonna click show transform controls at the top so we can see what we're doing. And then I'm going to not hold down shift and drag this down so the aspect ratio stays the same. Yo, that looks pretty dope, you know? I'm not mad about that at all. So that is it for today's tutorial. I hope that you found it useful and you can apply some of these tips and tricks you learned inside Photoshop to your next sports influence graphic or whatever it is you're creating. If you haven't already, I would definitely appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. I think we're just gonna be forever in this place where 70 to 80% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed, which I guess is whatever, but I would definitely appreciate it if you've watched this video or a few videos, just hit the subscribe button. It really does mean a lot. It would also be really useful if you hit the like button. It takes a second and it just tells YouTube that like, yo, a lot of people are liking this video, so let's show it to a whole other group of people, and then we can just continue to build this design community together. That seems cool to me. If you want to make a comment about what you saw in this video, or you have a suggestion for a future tutorial or like subject I should cover on my channel, just leave it in the comments below. I will definitely try to hit you back with a response as soon as possible. If you want to hit me up directly, Instagram is probably the best place for that. You can give me a follow as well while you're over there. It's at fuller.moe. Just send me a DM. I always try to hit everyone back as soon as possible, but I do love hearing from all of you. That's all I got for today. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.